What if every moment of suffering in your life was necessary, absolutely necessary, for you to become who you are meant to be? What if learning to love your fate, even its darkest chapters, was the secret to becoming truly free? In this episode, we're presenting Nietzsche's life-changing philosophy of Amor Fati from his perspective. If these are the kinds of explorations that call to your soul, please consider subscribing to this channel. We are dedicated to diving deep into the greatest minds of human history. Now, without any further delay, let's listen to Nietzsche's wisdom from his own perspective. Today, I want to speak to you from the depths of a storm that has raged within my consciousness for decades. A tempest that taught me the most profound secret of human existence, that our greatest strength emerges from embracing what we cannot change. The thunderclouds first gathered in my mind during the quiet hours of my youth, when I sat alone in my father's study, surrounded by volumes of theology and philosophy that promised answers to life's deepest questions. Yet each book I opened revealed only more questions, more contradictions, more evidence that the comfortable certainties my culture offered were built on foundations of sand. I was expected to follow the path of religious devotion that had been carved for me by generations of ancestors, to find comfort in the same beliefs that had sustained my family through centuries of German winters. The church bells that called others to worship became for me the sound of something dying, the death of naive faith, the collapse of inherited meaning, the slow dissolution of everything I had been taught to consider sacred and eternal. This dissolution felt like standing at the edge of an abyss, staring into a darkness that seemed to mock every human attempt to create purpose and significance. Most people, when confronted with such emptiness, either retreat into familiar illusions or fall into despair. I chose a third path, to dive headfirst into the void and discover what treasures might be hidden in its depths. The first treasure I found was the realization that this darkness was neither enemy nor friend. It simply was, like gravity or sunrise, a fundamental condition of existence that demanded neither our approval nor our resistance. This became the seed from which my entire philosophy would eventually bloom, the understanding that life asks only one thing of us, that we learn to dance with whatever music it plays. The more I questioned the foundations of human knowledge, the more I discovered that questioning itself was a form of creation, a way of bringing new possibilities into existence through the sheer force of intellectual courage. Each sacred belief I examined, the existence of absolute truth, the promise of eternal justice, the comfort of predetermined purpose, crumbled under careful scrutiny like ancient parchments exposed to daylight. Yet this destruction felt exhilarating rather than devastating, like clearing weeds from a garden to make room for something unprecedented to grow. I began to understand that human beings are fundamentally creative creatures, that we don't discover meaning so much as we invent it, forge it in the fires of our own experience and will. This insight was both terrifying and liberating. Terrifying because it removed the safety net of external authority. Liberating because it revealed our capacity to become authors of our own existence. The questions that emerged from this understanding cut through my consciousness like lightning illuminating a midnight landscape. If there is no predetermined purpose to existence, what prevents us from creating our own? If suffering serves no cosmic plan, how can we transform it into something valuable? If we are truly alone in an indifferent universe, what magnificent things might we accomplish through our solitude? My body became a laboratory where I conducted the most important experiments of my philosophical career, learning to transform physical agony into spiritual insight through the alchemy of acceptance. The headaches arrived like uninvited guests who refused to leave, establishing permanent residence in my skull with a persistence that made ordinary thinking feel like trying to compose poetry during an earthquake. For years, I experienced pain so intense that consciousness itself became a burden, each waking moment a testament to the fragility of human existence. Traditional responses to such suffering, self-pity, rage against fate, desperate searches for relief, only amplified the agony by adding layers of psychological resistance to physical discomfort. I discovered that pain possessed a strange mathematical quality. The more energy I spent fighting it, the more powerful it became, like a fire fed by the very wind meant to extinguish it. Gradually, through necessity rather than virtue, I learned to approach my suffering with a different attitude entirely. Instead of asking, "Why me?" or "When will this end?" I began inquiring, "What is this teaching me?" and "How can I use this experience to become stronger?" This shift in questioning transformed my relationship with pain from adversarial to collaborative. The breakthrough came during a particularly severe episode when I realized that my suffering was not separate from my thinking. It was my thinking, another form of consciousness, another way the universe was experiencing itself through my nervous system. This insight didn't eliminate the pain, yet it fundamentally altered my relationship to it, transforming an enemy into an uncomfortable teacher. Through wrestling with physical limitation, I discovered that true freedom has nothing to do with external circumstances and everything to do with our internal response to whatever circumstances arise. The hours I spent bedridden, unable to read or write, became unexpected meditation retreats, where silence taught me lessons that no book could convey. In the stillness forced upon me by illness, I learned to find companionship with my own thoughts, to discover entertainment in the endless creativity of consciousness when left to its own devices. I began to understand that every human being faces the same fundamental choice I was confronting in my sick room. We can either spend our lives fighting reality or learn to find beauty in whatever reality presents. This choice, I realized, was the most important decision any person ever makes, more significant than career, marriage, or any external achievement. The phrase that eventually captured this insight, Amor Fati, love of fate, emerged from thousands of small moments when I chose acceptance over resistance, curiosity over complaint, gratitude over resentment. Each choice built upon the previous one, creating a new way of being that transformed suffering from meaningless burden into raw material for personal transformation. In the depths of my most challenging years, I discovered that human beings are not fixed entities but continuous processes of becoming, rivers of change flowing toward destinations we cannot predict. The person I had been, dutiful son, promising scholar, conventional thinker, was dying as surely as leaves fall in autumn, making room for someone I could not yet imagine. This death felt like violence at first, a brutal dismantling of everything I had believed about myself and my place in the world. Only gradually did I recognize it as birth disguised as destruction. Every belief I released, every certainty I abandoned, every comfortable identity I outgrew created space for new possibilities to emerge. The process reminded me of a snake shedding its skin, temporarily vulnerable and exposed, yet ultimately emerging larger and more capable than before. I was learning to become comfortable with my own mutability. This ongoing transformation taught me that the self we defend so fiercely is mostly illusion, a collection of habits and memories that we mistake for our essential nature. Beneath this constructed identity lies something far more interesting: pure creative potential, consciousness capable of reinventing itself according to whatever challenges or opportunities arise. The realization was both humbling and empowering. Humbling because it revealed how little control we have over the forces that shape us. Empowering because it showed that we always retain the ability to choose our response to whatever forces are at work, to participate consciously in our own becoming rather than simply endure it passively. Learning to love fate required developing what I came to think of as an artistic relationship with existence, seeing life as a medium for creative expression rather than a problem to be solved. Just as a painter works with whatever colors are available, mixing them to create something beautiful, regardless of whether the palette matches their initial preferences, I learned to work with whatever experiences life provided. Joy and sorrow, health and illness, success and failure, all became pigments with which to paint the masterpiece of a consciously lived existence. This artistic approach transformed my relationship with memory as well. Instead of dwelling on past mistakes or lost opportunities, I began viewing every experience, pleasant and unpleasant alike, as necessary ingredients in the recipe of who I was becoming. The pain that had once felt like random cruelty revealed itself as precise education, teaching me lessons that could be learned no other way. The key insight was that life becomes meaningful when we stop demanding it conform to our expectations and start discovering what it's actually trying to teach us. Every challenge contains hidden gifts. Every setback offers unexpected opportunities. Every apparent ending opens doors we didn't know existed. In my final understanding, I discovered that Amor Fati represents the most radical form of freedom possible for human consciousness. The freedom that comes from complete acceptance of what is, combined with complete commitment to what might become. This acceptance is neither passive resignation nor naive optimism. It's an active embrace of reality that includes suffering, uncertainty, and death as integral parts of existence rather than mistakes to be corrected. When we truly accept these difficult aspects of life, we discover they contain their own forms of beauty, their own contributions to the symphony of human experience. The freedom that emerges from this acceptance is unlike anything most people experience. Instead of spending energy fighting unchangeable circumstances, we become available for the creative work of responding to those circumstances with intelligence, courage, and imagination. We stop being victims of fate and become its collaborators. This collaboration transforms us from consumers of meaning into producers of meaning, from seekers of purpose into creators of purpose. We realize that we don't need life to make sense according to some external standard. We can make sense of life through the quality of attention and intention we bring to each moment of experience. The ultimate yes I learned to speak was not agreement with everything that happened, but affirmation of my own capacity to find value in everything that happened. This yes became my signature upon existence, my way of saying that consciousness itself is so precious that whatever experiences are necessary to develop it are worth embracing completely. In the end, I discovered that loving fate means loving the entire dance of existence so completely that you would gladly live it again exactly as it was, with all its pain and beauty intact. This is the secret that transforms human life from tragic accident into magnificent adventure. When we learn to find meaning in whatever experiences arise, we become capable of creating meaning regardless of what experiences arise. We stop depending on favorable circumstances for happiness and discover happiness within our own creative response to circumstances. The question I posed at the beginning finds its answer here, in this recognition that every moment of suffering, every apparent setback, every experience we would rather avoid has been secretly conspiring to create the unique consciousness through which you are listening these words right now. Your fate, exactly as it has been, was the only path that could have led you to this moment of understanding, and that makes it worthy of your deepest love.